be recorded, and it will be on Leeds Libraries YouTube. So if you don't want to be on screen, please keep your video and your mic off and you won't be at all. Just give it a couple more minutes. Okay, so I'm going to start. We might have people join us throughout, but that's fine. I'll keep an eye on that. So hello, welcome to Leeds Libraries Tech Talks. My name is Claire Duffield. I'm Digital Engagement Librarian for Leeds Libraries. And today we are going to welcome Gary Hibberd, who is an expert in cybersecurity, and he's going to go through his career with you all. And you can ask him any questions you want in chat. So I'm just going to say a quick hello in there so that you can see where that comes up. So if you can keep your microphones on mute throughout and just ask any questions in chat, that would be absolutely brilliant. This is a safe space, so please no inappropriate behaviour or comments. If you do, I will remove you from the event. And yeah, that's all good. So a little bit of background about why we wanted to put these talks on. These were developed from lockdown, as a lot of things have, and it's a way of communicating and keeping connected. So we had a group of tech moms, and they were in the middle of finishing their course, which is a 10-week course. And we wanted to be able to bring them experts from the digital and cultural industries. And so we put these talks on. But then we found that other people were interested, so we opened them out to everyone. Great thing is they're recorded onto YouTube, so there is a lovely set of them now, including Natasha from Empowering Women in Sky, talking about human skills and the power of networks. Also talks from the British Library, who are talking about how we preserve books through digital data sets and how we can hack them and make new creative things. Also Deb from Women in Leeds Digital, talking about her career. So it's just a really fantastic set of talks to have a little look at, lots of different subjects. I'm going to share my screen now, so just bear with me, and I'm just going to talk you through a little bit about what Leeds Libraries are doing before I introduce today's talk. So hopefully you can all see this. You will see that we have a social media account on Twitter and Facebook, and also on Instagram, and it's at Leeds Libraries. We are doing a lot to try and bring you our library service online and in person now as well. So libraries are now open across the city. There's a list that you can view on leeds.gov.uk/libraries. And they are open for browsing, so you can go in and have a little look for your favourite books again, which is just absolutely fantastic. The other thing about this is that you can book a free 45-minute slot to use a computer with free internet access, and this is incredibly important. A lot of people in lockdown didn't have data, didn't have access to a computer, and so this allows them to apply for jobs, look for health resources, and stay connected to the world as well. So I'm very glad that we can offer that service again. We also have a click and collect service. So if you go onto our website or even use our library app, you can reserve your book and then go and collect it from a local library completely free of charge. And please do remember, we do not charge any fines. So this is just a fantastic service to get involved with. We have a weekly online activity, which involves a lot of hashtags, as you can see, but it includes a book club, Lego club, and a drop in draw club, which will be happening now 12/2, and you can join in that in real time or whenever you want to. And it's looking at our art library collections as inspiration, and then creating your own reaction to that using drawing or other means of art. We also share diverse daily story times as well for people to have a little look at. So I'll just move on. groups. And of course, this week is Get Online Week, and we are lucky enough in Leeds to have this fantastic team, which is the 100% Digital Leeds team. And that means that they provide third sector organisations with iPad loans, which are fully data enabled with 4G internet capability. And they also train digital champions across Leeds so that we are spreading the capacity and helping people to increase their skills and resources. So please do get in touch with them if you are interested in helping people get online, if you're an organisation. And that is my quick little introduction to what we are doing at the moment. Just going to check to see if I need to let anyone else in. I think Gary's been doing my work for me. Thank you, Gary. So I'll stop talking about libraries now, even though they're fantastic. And there's lots and lots of stuff. Please do follow us. And if you want to, please at Leeds Libraries today and tell us what you thought of the talk. So I'm going to introduce Gary now. So please just take it away, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, Claire, thanks ever so much for inviting me along to do this talk for your good selves today. I didn't know what to call this talk, because you said come along, talk about your career, how you got into doing what you do, and then just some general advice around cybersecurity and such. So I just thought, do you know what? I'll just put an ominous picture of me looking quite digitized, and then we'll just go from there. So you know, it's because it felt wrong just to call the slide, you know, it's all about me. But there you are. So yeah, it's all about me. So who am I? I think it's you know, we'll start with that really. So I'm Gary Hibberd. I'm currently known as the Professor of Communicating Cyber for Cyberfort, and Cyberfort are an end-to-end cybersecurity company. Go to my LinkedIn page, you can find out about them, you can find out about my career history in there. The purpose of today is really to talk a little bit about how I got to what I'm doing today, how long I've done it, lessons learned along the way, sort of thing, and just to give some general advice and guidance at the end, which, you know, I can go into lots of detail about, but I won't. I'll just give you the highest level. So I'm a published author in cybersecurity and business continuity. I am lucky enough to be invited to go around the world to speak at various conferences and various companies about cybersecurity, information governance, and such like. And I have won various awards for Business Continuity Manager and indeed Personality of the Year for cybersecurity and business continuity as well. And yes, they are real awards and they are real things that people have genuinely given to me and that are out there. So that's who I am. That's what I do. I think it's important to talk about, you know, where I come from. And, you know, in cybersecurity, when we do presentations, and I did just do an hour and a half of talking about ransomware and hackers and cyber criminals and such, people often say, what does a hacker look like? You know, are they wearing the hoods and, you know, they sat in the basements and such? Well, for me, it started out when I had hair. Way back in the early days, this is me sat on one of the earliest computers. That was a laptop, believe it or not, which used to burn your knees because the heat, there wasn't a fan in it. It was quite a beast. But yeah, so this is me at a young age of probably in that picture, probably about 15 to 16, working on one of my first computers. In terms of my background, I am from Sheffield. So my parents were blue-collar workers is probably the best description I could give them. My dad was, he was a engineer, worked in the steel mills and the steel factories and such. my mom had various different roles and jobs, working from everything from shops through to call centres and bingo halls and such. So this was my modest sort of house. Grew up with 2 older brothers, always a sharp dresser, as you can clearly see. You know, people said to me when I first started wearing waistcoats in cybersecurity, people said, oh, is this you're on trend, you know, is this a thing that you're setting? It's like, no, I was always that geek. I was always wearing waistcoats as a kid. Yeah, that's kind of who I was. But my parents, you know, being the youngest of 3, my 2 older brothers went into steel mills and fabrication and such. And certainly one of my brothers still does that. He is a director now of a fabrication company in Sheffield. So when it came to things about universities and such, there was no aspirations for me to go into university. There was no desire to push me in that direction at all. So as a young kid of, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, when you're starting to be asked what you're going to do, it was genuinely a case of, you know, you're going to go into the steel mills, or back in the early 80s, it was a case of you're going to go down the pits. So, but that wasn't for me. I wasn't a fan of getting my hands dirty. And luckily, around 1983, I went to the cinema and I saw this film called War Games. And War Games, for those who've never seen this film, bit of a spoiler alert here, it's all about a young Matthew Broderick, who plays a character called David Lightman, who he hacks into NORAD, which is this this defense system that, and he almost starts World War III. I won't tell you how the film ends, but it's a good film. It's a bit laughable these days because in it he talks about the internet, and it's amazing that he's able to book airline tickets using just his computer, and people are like, oh my word, look at that, this is a new world. And it was a new world to me, and I was genuinely just enthralled. And I remember leaving the cinema and turning to my best friend and saying, that's what I want to learn to do. And he said, what, you want to learn how to start World War III? And I said, no, you're missing the point. I want to learn how to use computers just like that guy did in that film. And I want to learn all about it. And that's what I did. So I'll talk about the career history in a moment or two, but that was a point where, you know, I realized for me, I'd found my passion. I just wanted to learn all about this technology, and I distinctly remember again saying to my parents, I want to become an expert on computers. That was it. That was the phrase. It wasn't, I want to change mankind. I want to put a PC on everyone's desk. I just said, I want to become an expert. I want to understand all of these things. And I used to go to libraries, and I would sit in libraries and I would research the history of computers and computing and programming languages. So Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage, you know, the Enigma machine and all of that, how, you know, computing changed. I would spend my waking days and hours in libraries. So this is why I'm so pleased to have been asked by Claire to speak to Leeds Libraries. So yeah, this was kind of my journey into computing, really. You know, I started with a ZX Spectrum. Well, it was actually a ZX81, and then I went to a 16K, and then a 48K, and then I got a Commodore and a VIC-20, and then a Commodore 64, and all of these PCs I was lucky enough, you know, to get, and I recognized the sacrifices my parents gave to get me these sorts of devices. And it was me saving my pocket money up as well to contribute. And then when I first started in my working life, I went on to a YTS. So I didn't go to university. I went on to a YTS, a youth training scheme, and went to something called Sumlock Calculating College, which allowed me to learn how to work in an office, which was something my parents never expected. And my 2 older brothers definitely didn't do. and learned how to use computers, and or was given the opportunity to use computers and such like. And that's where it all began. So 1983 through to sort of 1986, 87, when I left school, as I say, went straight from school straight into working. My only aim in life was to get my hands on a computer and to be able to use it. But at the time, whilst all this was going on, I wasn't just using these machines here to play games on. To be honest with you, until games consoles came out, I refused to play games on my computer. So whilst all my mates were out there buying computer games and such, I just didn't. I just used it for coding. So I would sit, and even before getting a computer, I literally sat with a notebook. That is a book that has pages, physical pages, and a pen, and I would sit with a library book and I would write code out. I had no idea if it worked. I had no idea if it would operate correctly, but I learned coding from a book onto a piece of paper and just sat there and would just wonder at this piece of code, this what looked to me like the most beautiful hieroglyphics that I'd written on a piece of parchment. So I definitely found my passion and found my love of coding. Fast forward to today, when people ask me what I do, it's one of those things, what people think I do and what I actually do are completely different. Strangers think I'm a hacker because I started out life as a hacker. My family think I'm some sort of strange mix of James Bond and David Brent, I think. But it's, people think I just play around with technology all day. The government seems to think I'm just going to break in, the slightest opportunity. What I think I do is that bit in the middle, which is, I think I'm saving the world one business at a time. So, I'm a little bit of a mixture of, of diehards and somebody else. I don't know who, but I'm trying to save the world one business at a time, I guess. What I actually do is I'm just really good with Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints and Word and stuff now, and using the tools that have been created. But when I first started, it was a very different thing. And I would say that now, one of the things that I am very much I've moved through technology. And, whilst I do love tech, I recognize it's taken me a long time to get from thinking, focusing purely on the technology, which is, I think, what a lot of people do, and I understand why, is to how technology is now being used. So I do a lot of work now with various different universities and various individuals on cyber psychology, cyber trauma, the way that technologies and our digital lives have changed and modified over the last 35 years. So, in the beginning, I would like to say that, I started out, if I look at my career, I started out as a developer, as a programmer, and then now all the way through to what, is a term that or a title I've been given by a dean of a university who said, "You are the professor of communicating cyber," because I've done all of these various things that have built up to a point where I'm now as comfortable talking about coding and network architectures and security design as I am talking about the psychology of cyber criminals, what cyber criminals are doing, how they operate, why they operate in the way that they do, why we, social media, why we click on the like button so much, understanding the psychology of cyber is as important as it is to understand the mechanics of it. So when people say to me, "Gary, I'm interested in cyber security, how do I get into it?" I often say, well, it's a difficult career path, because in terms of, you don't get into cyber security, I keep saying psychology, cyber security, you get into technology. You get a love and a passion for technology, how technology works. And once you understand that, then you can start to focus on how do we protect things? And the analogy I often give to people is that it's a bit like saying, I want to learn how to put an engine together in a secure way. And I say, well, you've got to learn how to take it apart first. You've got to understand the fundamental building blocks of an engine, of what it does, how it works, how it operates, to be able to put it back together again in a way that will better protect you or be able to work in a better way. Now, remembering or thinking about this for a second about what hackers really are. So going back to when I was sort of, first started out in, when I was, 13 years old or thereabouts, I wanted to be a hacker. Hackers weren't cyber criminals. There wasn't that negative connotation. So a cyber criminal is not always a hacker is not always a cyber criminal. A hacker is somebody who likes to take something apart and then put it back together again to the betterment of themselves usually, but it's about manipulation of that system, of that process and such. So that is, that's what a hacker is. I often say now that I don't do anything like the kind of hacking that I used to do way back when I first put networks together, and I was in my bedroom learning how to put together a LAN, a local area network, and then how a WAN would work, a wide area network, and learning how all those things. That was my foundation of learning what hacking was, because then I would say, right, well, how can I manipulate that computer in the corner? What can I do on this machine that would then affect that machine over there? And I had to build all those components because there wasn't anything for me to hack. So my career journey, as you can see, has been relatively varied in as much as, I've gone through quite technical areas, from network security support, network architecture and design and security, through to management of business continuity. I've been a risk and security manager, heads of security for large organizations and such. But it's allowed me and taken me to some fairly cool places and let me do some pretty interesting things. As I've said, lucky enough to be invited to speak on, quite large corporate stages, to author books and also to be a part of books, whether that be providing chapters for books, or whether that be somebody who is given an early draft of a book and asked to edit it or read it and review it and to comment on it. Even as far as, and this was a book that I was reminded that I had some input to many moons ago, around something called Protecting Your Business in a Pandemic. And that was a book that was done many years ago, probably about 12 years ago, I think. But I had opportunity to review an early draft of that and to have input to it. But the fundamental thing for me is that, I've been able to do lots of what I call pretty cool things. So I've worked again with, in various different degrees, in different ways, with various different law enforcement agencies, speaking at events that they're speaking at and learning from them, and hopefully them learning from me, because at the end of the day, they are the police, they are government, and I am an SME. I am a business owner, or I have been a business owner, and I've worked in various different places. Everything from, as I said, working with legal organizations, law enforcement. I've worked in government establishments. I've worked, as I said, in SME companies, manufacturing, retail, every conceivable area of, or every conceivable sector. I don't think I've missed any single one of them in my 35 years. But all of them with the same goal, which is to help protect data and to help make the use of data open to many different people, but in a very secure manner. Also ran my own security company, consultancy, with several other people. It wasn't just me who did it, obviously, but we were a small consultancy, and we were, again, able to help many different organizations with their data protection, their business continuity, their risk management and such. And it was all pretty cool. and I really enjoyed doing all of that, primarily because I'm kind of nosy. And I often say, when people say to me, you know, what does it take to be a cybersecurity practitioner? I often say, well, you have to have a thirst for knowledge. You have to have a real want to understand things and not take things on face value. You know, you've got to do your research, and the internet now is a wonderful resource, and it gives us lots of opportunities to do that. Libraries of old did exactly that. Again, I used to sit there in front of microfiche machines, you know, whizzing back and forth, and, you know, looking at various newspapers and articles and such. And now, you know, that opportunity is still there, but we've got it online. So, you know, the resources are there. But you've got to have a real thirst for knowledge, a real passion for it. But when people say to me, you know, it sounds kind of boring, you know, cybersecurity, is it boring? It's like, well, you know, when I sort of say that I'm saving the world one business at a time, you know, I truly believe that. And, you know, it's on the news at 10 nearly every night that you've got Russian hackers, or this is happening, and, you know, social media is being used in this way or that way. I don't know how it can be boring. And also, the great thing about this is, as you can see with this slide here, is I've worked in lots of different sectors, lots of different types of businesses, everything from two guys in a room, startup business, very agile, entrepreneurial, right up to monolithic companies that employ tens of thousands of people, very slow to change, but they're equally just as interesting. But all with this idea of working with data and digital. The reason why I think this is such an important area, and why I think, you know, we need to all be embracing cybersecurity and getting involved in this, is that, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And I'm sure most of you, if you've been to any presentation on cybersecurity, you'll have seen something similar as this, which talks about the web and the size of the web and the different levels. You have the deep web and you have the dark web. You know, I operate quite frequently in the dark web. A lot of journalists do, a lot of consultants do, and researchers do, you know, as well as cyber criminals. And I just think it's a fascinating area. You know, there's a lot for us to learn in the dark web, about the dark web, and indeed, of course, the deep web as well. But the dark web's the bit where it's probably more interesting from a research perspective. And a lot of people say to me, you know, this stuff doesn't affect me, so why should I get in? Why should I be interested in it? And the reason is very simply that, you know, the world has turned. You know, cybercrime, or rather crime now is cybercrime. It's crime 2.0. Everything from burglars through to sexual predators. You know, these people are spending their time online, and we are at risk of becoming victims if we don't improve our security. And these things are leading to data breaches, and we see these data breaches like the Microsoft events, Estee Lauder, you know, Marriott, the NHS. You know, these kind of headlines are hitting the headlines all the time. And again, this is why I love what I do, because I could go and work for any one of these companies and improve, or organizations, and improve their security by incremental changes, whether that be through people, through process, through technology. So again, it's just great for me because I get to learn something new. It's a new industry, perhaps. You know, I don't know much about Estee Lauder or that sector, but certainly I do know that they have a lot of personal data. So I would work with them and understand how they protect things. We need to get on top of this. We all need, this is a bit of a call to arms, that we need more people involved in cybersecurity, because, you know, we are, according to UK Active Defence, UK residents are more likely to be a victim of cybercrime or fraud than any other offence. And we need to get better at protecting ourselves, and we need people like myself to communicate the importance of this. And we need more people to get involved, because, you know, we're seeing things like coronavirus scams increasing. You know, there's 140 email campaigns, active campaigns at the moment targeting coronavirus. And it's risen, according to Action Fraud, by 400% in the last 6 months. And we know that this is you know, becoming a problem. Cyber criminals now have become organized crime, or cybercrime has become organized crime. And we know that because of all these reasons. You know, online is becoming easier because of automation. They're embracing technologies. The size of and diversity of our digital universe is expanding. The amount of data is increasing that we're using, and cyber criminals don't care who they attack. So again, a little bit like me, in as much as I could go and work for anywhere. You know, I could get a phone call from a retail company, or from the NHS, or from, you know, somebody who works in human resources, or somebody who works in recruitment. Any organization could call me tomorrow and say, we've got this amount of data, we need to be protected, and I could go and work there, which I think is pretty cool. Data is the new oil. You know, we've probably all heard that phrase quite a lot. We know that we are creating data on levels that we never really expected. You know, 243,000 photos are uploaded every 60 seconds, you know, which is incredible. Probably half of those are from my daughter. But, you know, it's kind of, we're all doing it. We're all living increasingly online, and we need to better protect that. We need to remember that, you know, it's the way that we use technology is affecting our kids. You know, kids are feeling unimportant to mobile phone addicted parents. You know, are we teaching our kids in the right way? So again, you know, when we tell our kids to put their phones down at the dinner table, do we in fact follow suit? And what if we don't, then why don't we? Why aren't we switching off at the end of the day? Do we feel pressurized? You know, and it worries me that what we're seeing with kids online, you know, 43% of kids have been bullied online. You know, 1 in 10 victims will inform a parent, and 81% of young people think that bullying online is easier to get away with. And yet I'm one of the people who's standing there saying it's not easier to get away with, because you are giving me an audit trail. When I was at school, when I was a lad, if I was being bullied, it was a very secretive task. It would be behind the bike sheds, it would be on the school bus. And unless I told my parents, it wouldn't be discussed. Now it's happening online. They're giving, you know, kids are giving us an audit trail, but we have to recognize it's also pervasive. It's in their bedrooms. So again, we need to think about how we're using social media. And as a cybersecurity professional, it would be remiss of me in my career to stop at I understand the technology and I know how to put a firewall in, or how I know how to code, or what a VPN is. I need to understand why a VPN is important, and also why don't the general public know the importance of it, and why don't they recognize the importance of it? Because if I could do that, then maybe I could create a VPN that everyone would use. That type of thing. I think that's where we need to take our minds next. In terms of, you know, what's happening right here and right now, I urge people to watch these 2 programs. You know, yes, they are made for Netflix. Yes, they are quite sensational, but I do think they are great programs that we should all watch, and will start a conversation. Certainly the Social Dilemma will start a conversation in your family. So again, I would urge people to sit and watch that and have a conversation. Final parts from me, very simply, because I know this is a tech talk, so I may be preaching to the converted here, and I know there's some questions that have been coming through. You know, how do I stay safe? I always say to people is question everything. But I think that's true of cyber psychologists and cybersecurity professionals. We have to question the source of the knowledge and information, which again brings me back to research, which again takes me back to libraries. So, you know, we should research our topics. People often say to me, oh, Gary, you know, introduce me as Gary the expert. And I say, look, I prefer a specialist, because I could be an expert on dinosaurs, because I think we've pretty much learned everything we know about dinosaurs. But this is ever expanding. I don't know if there's experts on the universe, because the universe, we're learning things all the time. I specialize in cyberspace, and I love this topic, and I want to learn so much about it. So question everything, give away nothing. You know, think about what you see, question everything. You know, starting with the basics, you know, we could talk about things like passwords, but we need to think about why is it that 20 years ago, I was saying these things to people, and yet today, before this, I did a presentation, a webinar for about 100 people, and I was still talking about the need for improved passwords. So multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication still is alien talk to most people. So we need to say, right, okay, how do we get better at explaining the importance of passwords and such? And keeping systems up to date. People aren't doing it. You know, systems break. People need to improve, you know, patching and thinking about the networks and systems and mobile devices, home devices. But I often say to people, it's not just about systems. It's about your brains as well. It's about you making a list of all the systems that you've got, updating them, but then patching your own knowledge and experience as well. So patch yourselves, you know, the firmware in your brain, in your head, as well as the devices that we connect to. And the final thing I say to people is, look, remember that data is people. It's our kids, it's our families, it's our loved ones, it's our businesses. When I see things like Marriott Hotel being impacted by a breach, or Microsoft, or, you know, Estee Lauder, 440 million data records stolen, for me, I just see 440 million people. And I go, what is the real impact on those people? And that is where I will leave it, and I will hand over to for questions. But that's me in a nutshell, and who I am, what I do, and why I do it. I hope that has been of interest.
Just clear. Thank you, Gary. That's so really interesting. Thank you also for the plugging of libraries and books quite a few times. Loving that. I'm going to have a wee look at the questions. So Julia's asking, why do we click on the like button so much?
Right, okay, we click on the like button because we are designed to, we are, as humans, we are predisposed to connect with other people. And we are, yeah, it's a little bit like going to the casinos. This is what Social Dilemma talks about quite a bit. It's about a little bit like going to the casinos. Who else has liked my my picture? Who else likes what I like? You know, and it's about the social acceptance. So I put a picture up there, and I want people to, you know, do you like the dinner I've just put up there? I've just created this, or, you know, I've been out for a walk, or I've gone and done this workout. Who else likes that? So it's about, you know, social acceptance and acceptability. So that's why we do it. But again, I'm going to go back to the Social Dilemma documentary, which is quite good. It's quite Americanized and dramatized, but it explains it extremely well in terms of it was designed to be like the slot machines, and what's going to come next. Am I getting anything next?
Yeah, it's addictive, isn't it? It's just talk about how we are kept online by social media and the algorithms behind it, and they want you to spend as much time as possible on there, really.
That's primarily it. Yeah, the platforms, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, when he was being asked by Congress what they do, how they make their billions, he said it with a smile on his face. Some might say a sarcastic smile, but he just said, we sell ads. And the longer, just like in the same way that you know, if you wanted to advertise in the ad break on Coronation Street, it's a lot of money to do that 30-second ad as compared to advertising at 2 o'clock in the morning. And there's a reason, because they know more people are watching at that time. So the longer that they can keep people on their platform, the more ads they can put up there, and the more eyes on that they can give. That's the reason why they do what they do.
Sorry. Julia's also asking how secure cloud computing is, as we put a lot of personal information on the internet these days. Brilliant
question. What I would always say is, and this is actually, it's not me saying this, this is the cyber criminals saying this, they're not attacking the cloud. The cloud is actually quite secure because, you know, companies like Microsoft and Amazon and others have invested billions of dollars in the infrastructure of the cloud. So they've put firewalls in place. They've built, you know, the Cyberfort itself. We have a data center down in Kent, and it's built in. It's called the bunker because it's built into a Cold War bunker. You know, it's got walls that are 14 feet thick. It's meant to withstand a nuclear attack. And so the cloud, very secure from that perspective, but the cyber criminals aren't attacking the cloud, they're attacking the devices that connect to the cloud. So they're attacking your laptop, they're attacking your mobile phone. They, you know, if you put a router in your home and you don't change the password on it, then they're connecting to that device, and then they're connecting to your systems. So it's the cloud. So the answer to the question is the cloud is secure, but it doesn't mean that your data is secure, because it's how many devices are connected to it. And for each one of those, the best way to look at that is it's like a chink in the armor.
And we have to take a bit of responsibility about our passwords and finding out, all of the security that we need to keep secure.
Absolutely. Yeah, just by putting in some basic security measures yourself, some basic steps like password protection. It's all about, it is a game of increments, you know, incremental changes, and just not becoming the next victim. And I you know, I like to put things in real world analogies. And back in the 80s, there was a lot of talk about burglary and the risk of becoming, you know, having your house burgled. And the reason why I put that picture up earlier is, you know, they talked about put the lights on in your house so it looks like there's someone in, you know, lock the front door, keep your windows shut. And the aim, will that stop you from being burgled? No. But will it stop you from a casual burglar who's walking past your house burgling you? Yeah, they'll go on to the next house that looks dark and looks like they've got poor security. So doing the basics, like have a password, you know, using a VPN, for instance, having malware protection on your machine. That's 3 things that you could do that perhaps somebody else isn't doing, that then the cyber criminal is going to just completely bounce off you and go to the next person.
Yeah, and there's lots of good websites with advice on how to do that as well. There's one called Learn My Way, and you can go through a full a course basically on how to protect yourself and online safety and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of the tools that you've got, like for assistance, if you are breached, if you have an issue, I tend to point people to the cyber helpline, and it is you can just Google that phrase, the cyber helpline, and that's run by a contact stroke friend of mine, and he that is manned by a number of things. It has a bot that's on there that's AI, so you can type in the problem that you have and it'll come back and give you some response. But also there's a lot of volunteers like myself, people like me, who volunteer their time to help people who are suffering from phishing attacks, cyber stalking, bullying, and all manner of things. So, and it gives lots of helpful advice about how to protect yourself so you don't become a victim of all of those things as well.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to go on to a question from Steve, which is one of the big challenges to making systems simple. Is one of the big challenges making systems simple so people can use them? I think he's asking.
Yes. It is. I think you're right, Steve. I think I often say to people, even in terms of cybersecurity, the more complex it becomes, the more difficult it is to secure it. And I mean that by, you know, and I'm a victim just of in the same way that all of you are, in terms of, you know, when you go to your bank and it says, right, you enter a password, and you go, right, and there's my password. And then you say, oh, that's not a strong enough password. You need to do it like this. And you go, right, okay, I'll do it like that. Oh, now you need to enable 2-factor authentication. All right, here's 2-factor authentication. Oh, and you need to do this. And you're like, you made it so complex that I am now going to do the path of least resistance. I am going to start breaking my own cardinal sin, you know, rules and sin. And I'm going to do all these things that I keep telling people not to do, because you've made it so complex for me to gain access to my account or whatever it is. So yes, I think you're absolutely right. So, you know, there's that acronym that we hear, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And I keep saying that to developers, please just make it simple. Stop putting, you know, because people are like water, and people will find their way around any kind of process, any rock you put in their way. They say, oh, this is security, and you just stick this big bold thing in the middle, and you go, no, people will find a way around that. And you can't just keep putting other rocks in my way to stop me, because I will still find my way through. So keep it simple. And yeah, if we can do that, then, and this is why things like the binary, the biometrics, so your thumbprints, that type of stuff keeps it simple. Your face, and that keeps it simple because people aren't having to remember.
I love that stuff. Although it's hard when it asks you to do it and you've forgotten. When it's like, we need your PIN number this time. Actually, you're like,
yeah. There are, again, there's lots of people out there doing some great work in trying to improve those steps and those measures. We're not there yet, and I know we're not, because I'm still talking about passwords.
Yes, yeah. Also, there's a question about how technology is moving forward, and is this likely to be easily cracked? Is there, I suppose, some kind of governing body about how secure things have to be?
Unfortunately not. I mean, I love it when I go and speak in schools, and especially to primary schools, and they say, kids will say, when they talk about all the bad people on the internet, or they know about the dark web, and they go, why can't we just switch that part of the net off? Or, I did have somebody at a primary school just saying, can we not all just sign up to a set of rules that we all follow? And I went, that's brilliant. Yeah, we did have that in Europe called GDPR. And look how difficult that was to get people to start to comply with, But yes, I mean, unfortunately, there's no one overarching governing body. There are various different governing bodies doing different things, like the World Wide Web Foundation, I think it's called. It's been that long since I've heard from them. I can't even remember what they're called now. But there is a consortium. So these guys are, they're trying to govern the way that the internet works, et cetera, and there's various different bodies. But by and large, it's like saying, right, okay, we're going to go to Russia now and say to them, here's a charter, and you guys have got to sign up to it. Can you imagine Putin signing up to that? And then go to China and Korea and say, you guys have got to sign up to working like this? Unfortunately, not. In terms of the future technology, even that, we're repeating some of the mistakes we made way back when. Some of us may remember the millennium bug. Some of us may need to Google what the millennium bug is. So, but the millennium bug was born out of the fact that we didn't have enough code in memory to be able to code the full date into it. So we cut corners. Now, fast forward to today, I think we're making the same mistakes when we look at the IoT, the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Everything, and we are creating devices and putting devices into our homes that have one primary purpose. It might be a vacuum cleaner, or it might be a fridge, and the firmware that goes into them, they're not thinking about security. What they're thinking about is they're thinking about the functionality. Can this vacuum cleaner learn? Can it do what it needs to do? So they've got very little memory in those devices, and the software in them, the firmware, is only meant to do one thing. But as a hacker, if I can hack into that device, what can I do with that? Well, maybe I could get that device to overheat and then set on fire, which will then burn down your house.
How are you scaring me?
Listen, I haven't finished yet. What about the devices we're putting into our bodies in the future? What about the Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker? So now what happens if I can hack that?
Oh, God. I've just bought an IoT light bulb, and what else have I bought? I can't remember, something else. I'm looking at a diffuser, aromatherapy diffuser, that I can tell to smell when I want it to smell and stuff. I hadn't really thought. I know it's connecting to my Alexa and to my Wi-Fi and things like that. So yeah.
But I'm sure, listen, and this is why I said at the beginning, I always put that picture, I love tech. Guess what? I've got a vacuum cleaner. I've got an IoT connected devices. I love technology. But what I do is I put the minimum, or as much security, not the minimum, but as much security as I can in place. So the router that I've got in place, I've got it configured in a certain way that allows me to have access to it. I've checked my passwords, I change them regularly, etc., etc. And it's just about putting those steps in place that protect those kinds of devices. So your perimeter devices, you know, the things that your diffuser's connecting to, you need to think about the security of that. But further on down the line, you know, we need to think about what that security looks like in those devices. And I just simply say to people, ask yourself, is that necessary? Because some of the devices that we've got, you know, you've got smart salt dispensers called SMALTs. So do you really need, why do I need a salt dispenser that's going to be, that I can say, please give me some salt? Why do I need a mattress called a smart truss, which tells me if my bed is in use when I'm not using it?
That's creepy.
But you can Google smart truss, you can go out and buy, you can go and buy one. And genuinely the tagline to the smart truss is, if your partner's not faithful, at least your mattress will be.
Oh no.
But it's connected to the IoT. It's connected to the Internet of Things. But are we thinking about the security when I'm buying that particular device?
No, that's a strange one, I have to say. Last question, because we're running out of time. This is a really interesting subject for me. I'm really enjoying it. I hope everyone else is. So Julie was particularly interested in the delivery robots and them being, I think this might be a trial or something in Milton Keynes. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've not heard about the latest trials. I mean, I'm assuming it's the delivery robots for delivering of, you know, your Amazon parcels and such things as that. So I've seen that we are heading in that direction. Again, you know, look, this is my warped mind that has been warped over 35 years of having to think of the negative. But there is, you know, so for me, there's always a clear it's a double-sided coin. I can see the benefits, absolutely. But in terms of the, you know, I always think, right, okay, but what are the downsides? So when it comes to the deliveries and such things as that, I just look at that and say, brilliant, you know, that's great. So we're going to, you know, poor postman's going to lose his job, apparently. But, you know, I'm going to get my deliveries on time. I want to get them, you know, not kicked through the fence by, you know, whoever. So sorry if anyone works for any delivery, UPS or anything like that. But, you know, it's going to be delivered on time and in the right way, which is great. But then I just think, well, what could happen there? If I could hack that device, if I could get into your system and I know that you've just ordered the latest PlayStation or, you know, the latest Xbox and such, and then you've gone and it says, would you like it to be delivered by, you know, delivered driver, you know, our delivery robot? And you go, yes, please. Now I've got access to your system. As soon as if I've got access to your email, your inbox, I can just sit there and go, oh, right, okay, so I know that that's going to be delivered. I could just simply just email to Amazon, say change of address, and that goes through. It then changes, the robot will now send that to a different address, and then obviously Amazon will email me back and say, are you sure about this? And I'll go yes, and then delete the confirmation email. Done. Now, the delivery will never get to where it needs to get to.
Okay.
But that could happen now, you know, this is it. So it's just about, but the more automation you put in place, the more opportunities as a cyber criminal I have then to be able to get myself in the middle. It's called a man in the middle attack, when I just sit in a cafe and you don't use a VPN and I can screen all the, you know, or sniff the network to get all the information. It's known as a man in the middle attack. This is, if you put lots of different automation steps in place, back to Steve's point earlier, it's building complexity, at which point now I can insert myself anywhere along that chain and be able to take the information.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stop us there. Really, really interesting. So don't all be scared of using technology after
No,
this.
don't.
Just think it's a fantastic thing, a resource for us, but just think about how you can make yourself safe as an individual.
Absolutely. It is genuinely that. You don't, you know, look, it's true to say, you know, that there is no such thing as 100% secure, but that's true in any walk of life. You know, the world is a wonderful thing. Our online world is a wonderful thing. People say to me sometimes, you know, you must not be on Facebook because you watch Social Dilemma and you watch all these other programs. You know what's happening. That's the point. I know what's happening. It's a fair exchange. I know how I am being manipulated and I understand the game I'm getting into. What frustrates me and worries me is that a lot of people don't. But absolutely, technology is an amazing thing. Go out and buy your IoT things, but just enable security.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Gary. Next week we have oh my gosh, I've forgotten the name of the person. Someone from BGSS, and they'll be talking about AI and the ethics behind that. So that'll be quite a good lead on from this. So please do join us. Again, it's on our Leeds Libraries Eventbrite. And I just want to thank you all for coming today and enjoying the talk and joining in with questions. It's been really, really interesting. And a massive thank you from Gary for giving up his time and his specialist subjects as well. So thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Cool beans. Ooh, that was so interesting. Thank you, Gary.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Sorry about any difficult questions.
No. There were no difficult questions at all. No, it was. They were interesting. It's more that any one of those questions we could have gone deep dive into. So I was trying to give it as high as I possibly could. But yeah, were you comfortable with that?
Yeah, really comfortable, really interesting, and I like how just that you're saying that you're not an expert as well. I think that's important. And you're like a specialist because it's changing all the time. That was really good to hear.
Yeah. No, I definitely believe that. I mean, I get that people have to say, or want to say Gary Hibberd, the expert, because he's been doing it 35 years. Yeah. I say, look, I'm a specialist because, and I'm more knowledgeable about the topic because for the last 35 years, I've been looking at this topic, whereas some people are just starting to look at this. But and I didn't say it actually in the talk when I talk about being a computer programmer. When I first started, of course, I learned BASIC, I learned assembly language, I learned Fortran, COBOL, C, C++. Now I can only think of 2 of those languages that make any sense anymore.
Definitely.
So it's no point me now saying I am a programmer, because if someone said go and program this, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a good thing to install in people, is that things are always changing, and just having a basic knowledge that you can expand upon to go into a specific field is fantastic.
Yeah, I think for me, someone once said to me about actual languages, that it was a friend of mine, and she's French, and she could speak English, Arabic, German, Italian, and a couple of others. And I was like, how did you learn all those languages? I can barely speak English. And she said, well, once you learn the construction and the structure of a language, you can deconstruct it, and then you put it back together again. And she said, and most of the languages I know are all based upon the